Hello, and welcome to Lotus Light Teachings. Today, we're diving into a transformative topic: how to reclaim your focus and align with your inner purpose in 2025. This isn't just about setting goals or making resolutions. It's about rediscovering yourself amidst the chaos of modern life. Together, we'll explore timeless Buddhist wisdom, share real-life stories, and uncover practical steps to help you create a more peaceful and meaningful life. Let's begin this journey toward clarity and self-discovery. A new chapter in 2025. Imagine waking up to the soft glow of morning light streaming through your window. The world feels quiet, and for a brief moment, there's no rush, no deadlines, no expectations. Just you and the promise of a new day. Now ask yourself, what if every day could feel this intentional? The year 2025 holds that potential, not as a resolution-driven sprint, but as an opportunity to slow down and focus inward. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded by distractions. Notifications pull us in 100 directions. Societal expectations tell us who we should be, and the noise of comparison can drown out our own voice. It's no wonder so many of us feel lost. But what if I told you that peace isn't something you need to chase? It's already within you, waiting to be uncovered. Through the lens of Buddhist philosophy and practical self-reflection, we're going to embark on a journey to rediscover this truth. This is your wake-up call, a chance to pause, reflect, and prioritize what truly matters. Finding the calm within. Let me share a story with you. A few years ago, I found myself in the middle of a crowded city, juggling work, relationships, and personal aspirations. Life felt like an endless race, and despite achieving milestones, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. One evening, after a particularly overwhelming day, I stumbled upon a quiet park bench. I sat down, closed my eyes, and just listened to the wind in the trees, the distant hum of traffic, and the sound of my own breath. In that moment, something shifted. I realized I had been searching for fulfillment in the noise, when what I needed was silence. That evening marked the beginning of my journey inward, guided by mindfulness and the teachings of Buddhism. Awareness. As we step into this exploration together, I want you to reflect on one question. What would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to slow down? This isn't about abandoning responsibilities, but about approaching them with clarity and intention. Like a still pond reflecting the sky, a calm mind allows you to see your true self. In the chapters ahead, we'll uncover how to cultivate self-awareness, align with your purpose, and navigate life's challenges with grace. Think of this as a conversation between friends, a space to learn, grow, and be inspired. Let's begin. The wake-up call of 2025. A fresh perspective. As the clock ticks into 2025, take a moment to breathe. Imagine this year not as another cycle of routines and obligations, but as a threshold, a chance to pause and truly see yourself. In a world bustling with demands and distractions, when was the last time you stopped to ask, am I living or merely moving? Life often feels like a relentless current, sweeping us along without pause. We scroll through our days, chasing deadlines, likes, promotions, and approval, rarely questioning why. The Buddha, with infinite wisdom, once posed a simple yet profound question: what is the meaning of your life if you are constantly chasing and never finding? In that question lies the essence of our journey. A call to slow down, look inward, and awaken to what truly matters. There was once a young woman named Amara, a successful corporate professional. To those around her, she seemed to have everything: an enviable job, a buzzing social life, and a digital presence glowing with curated perfection. Yet, deep within, Amara felt an emptiness she couldn't name. Each morning, she woke up to the sharp jolt of her alarm and began scrolling through an endless feed of other people's lives. Each night, she fell asleep exhausted, not from physical labor but from carrying the weight of unspoken dissatisfaction. One evening, after a particularly draining day, her phone battery died. At first, she panicked, feeling disconnected from her usual anchors of entertainment and validation. But as the hours passed and the silence deepened, something remarkable happened. Amara began to hear herself. For the first time in years, She noticed the rhythm of her breath, the weight of her thoughts, and the quiet longing within her heart. That moment of solitude became a spark, a wake-up call that led her down a path of self-discovery. In many ways, Amara's experience mirrors our collective lives. We are caught in the whirlwind of doing, often forgetting the simplicity of being. Yet, as the Buddha taught, within the silence lies profound clarity. In stillness, we can hear the truths we've drowned out with noise. Amara's awakening came not just from silence, but from a deep realization of impermanence. Anicca. The Buddhists teach us that everything in life is transient. Our successes, failures, relationships, and even our thoughts. The law of impermanence isn't meant to bring despair, but to offer freedom. If nothing lasts forever, why burden ourselves with attachments that tether us to dissatisfaction? Consider the seasons. A tree sheds its leaves in autumn, not in grief but in preparation for renewal. Similarly, when we let go of what no longer serves us, be it unhealthy habits, toxic relationships, or unrealistic expectations, we create space for growth. 2025 is your opportunity to shed the unnecessary and embrace transformation. The Buddha's first teaching after his enlightenment was the Four Noble Truths, a profound framework for understanding and overcoming suffering. 1. Life contains suffering, dukkha. 2. Suffering arises from attachment and craving, tanha. 3. There is a way to end suffering. 4. The Eightfold Path leads to liberation. Amara realized that her suffering stemmed from her attachment to external validation. Like so many of us, she craved acknowledgement, feared failure, and sought comfort in the fleeting. Yet, with mindfulness, she began to see these cravings for what they were, temporary illusions. By recognizing them, she began to loosen their grip. Ask yourself, what am I holding onto that causes me pain? Perhaps it's the need for control, the fear of change, or the longing for approval. Once you identify these attachments, you can start to untangle yourself from their hold. The Eightfold Path offers practical steps to navigate life with clarity and intention. It is not a rigid doctrine, but a compassionate guide. Right view. Understand that life's challenges are opportunities for growth. Right intention. Cultivate kindness and commitment to inner peace. Right speech. Speak truthfully and with compassion. Right action. Act in ways that align with your values. Right livelihood. Engage in work that supports well-being. Right effort. Avoid harmful thoughts and nurture positive ones. Right mindfulness. Stay present in each moment. Right concentration. Focus your mind to achieve clarity and peace. For Amara, these principles became her daily anchors. Instead of rushing to meet societal expectations, she began setting intentions rooted in her values. She replaced mindless scrolling with mindful breathing, letting the present moment guide her actions. As Amara embraced these teachings, her life transformed. Not in grand, sweeping changes, but in small, profound ways. She noticed the colors of the sunrise on her morning walk, the kindness in her colleagues' voices, and the joy in sharing laughter with a friend. Her relationships deepened, not because she sought more from others, but because she gave more of herself. In the same way, your focus on mindful living can create ripples of positivity. When you approach each day with presence and purpose, you inspire others to do the same. Imagine a world where our collective attention shifts from doing more to being more, from seeking to giving. As you stand at the beginning of 2025, I invite you to pause and ask, what am I truly running toward? Take a technology detox one evening each week. Instead of scrolling, write down your thoughts, reflect on your dreams, and sit with your emotions. In these moments of quiet, you may find not just answers but the questions that truly matter. Let this year be your wake-up call. Like Amara, step away from the noise and into the stillness of your own heart. Within you lies all the wisdom you seek, waiting to be discovered. The Buddha once said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, humans cannot live without a spiritual life. In essence, your life is not defined by the accolades you earn or the possessions you accumulate, but by the light you cultivate within. Let 2025 be the year you kindle that light, a steady flame that illuminates not just your path but the paths of those around you. Remember, Awakening is not a single moment but a journey. Each step you take, however small, brings you closer to peace and purpose. Trust in the process and know that the greatest transformation begins with a single question: what truly matters to me? So as the sun rises on this new year, let it rise within you. Embrace the quiet, honor your journey, and walk forward with the courage to live authentically. In doing so, you will not only transform your own life, but inspire a world that deeply needs your light. Building self-awareness, the foundation of growth. Have you ever felt like a passenger in your own life, swept along by currents you didn't choose? It's a strange sensation, as though you're living, but not fully awake. In moments of stillness, a question may rise like a whisper: who am I beneath all this noise? This question, simple yet profound, is the beginning of self-awareness, the first step toward true transformation. Buddhism teaches us that self-awareness is like a lamp in a dark room. Its light doesn't immediately dispel all shadows, but it reveals enough for us to take one step forward. With every step, the light grows brighter, and what once seemed chaotic begins to take shape. This is the journey we embark upon when we choose to awaken to ourselves. There's an old story about a wandering monk who met a traveler lost in the forest. The traveler, frustrated and afraid, lamented that he couldn't find his way. The monk handed him a small, flickering lamp and said, "Light this, and you'll see the path." The traveler hesitated. "But it's so dim," he replied. The monk smiled gently and said, "Even a small light can guide you if you're willing to follow it." This story reminds us that self-awareness doesn't require grand revelations or sudden clarity. It begins with the willingness to look inward, even when the light seems faint. In the practice of mindfulness, we learn to notice our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment, cultivating a gentle curiosity toward ourselves. From this place of understanding, true growth becomes possible. There's a woman I once knew, Elena, who embodied this journey beautifully. She was a dedicated professional, a mother, and a friend to many. From the outside, her life seemed perfect, well-organized, productive, and full of achievements. But inside, Elena felt disconnected, like she was living on autopilot. Every decision she made seemed driven by expectations rather than her own desires. One day, during a routine meeting at work, she found herself staring blankly at a screen, unable to remember why she was there. It was a small moment but profound enough to shake her awake. Is this really how I want to live? Elena began a practice of journaling every night, not to record her tasks but to reflect on her feelings. First, it was awkward. She wrote about her frustration, her fatigue, and her longing for something she couldn't name. But over time, she started noticing patterns, how certain situations made her feel drained, while others filled her with quiet joy. Slowly, she began to understand herself in a way she never had before. This practice brought Elena face to face with impermanence, a core teaching in Buddhism. The Buddha reminds us that everything in life is transient. Our emotions, circumstances, and even our identities. Elena realized that the roles she clung to were not fixed. She didn't have to be the perfect mother or the flawless employee. She could simply be herself, a human being navigating the ebb and flow of life. This awareness was liberating. By letting go of rigid expectations, she created space for authenticity and growth. Imagine your mind as a still pond. When the waters are calm, you can see your reflection clearly. But when stirred by distractions, emotions, or external pressures, the surface becomes distorted. The Buddha often spoke of mindfulness as a way to still the waters. By observing our thoughts and feelings without reacting impulsively, we can begin to understand their source. Self-awareness is not about perfection. It's about noticing. One day, you might notice a flicker of irritation when a colleague interrupts you. Instead of brushing it aside or snapping back, you pause and ask yourself, why does this bother me so much? Perhaps it's not the interruption itself, but a deeper frustration with feeling undervalued. This insight allows you to respond with clarity rather than anger, opening the door for meaningful change. In one of his teachings, the Buddha said, "What we think, we become." This wisdom highlights the power of self-awareness. Our thoughts shape our reality, influencing our actions and the way we perceive the world. But how often do we stop to examine these thoughts? In modern life, where distractions are endless, it's easy to operate on autopilot, reacting to stimuli without reflection. Let me share another story, this time of a young man named Arun. Arun was ambitious and driven, always chasing the next milestone. But no matter how much he achieved, he felt restless, as though he were running a race with no finish line. During a retreat, he was introduced to the practice of mindful breathing. At first, it seemed too simple to be effective. How can sitting and breathing solve my problems? He wondered. But as he practiced, he began to notice something extraordinary. His thoughts, once a chaotic stream, started to slow down. In the stillness, he saw how often his mind was consumed by fear of failure or longing for recognition. Arun's breakthrough came when he realized that his worth didn't depend on external validation. The practice of self-awareness helped him see that his constant striving was driven by a fear of inadequacy, a fear that was, in itself, impermanent. With this understanding, Arun began to focus less on outcomes and more on the joy of the process. He discovered a sense of peace he hadn't known was possible. Self-awareness also teaches us compassion, not just for others but for ourselves. The Buddha emphasized the importance of kindness, beginning with the self. When we truly see ourselves, our flaws, our fears, and our aspirations, we begin to understand our shared humanity. This understanding dissolves judgment and replaces it with compassion. I remember a conversation with an elderly monk who shared a simple yet profound practice. Every morning, he said, I look in the mirror and bow to myself, not out of pride, but out of gratitude for the journey I'm on. This act of bowing was his way of acknowledging both his struggles and his growth, a reminder that self-awareness is not about criticism but acceptance. Bringing this wisdom into daily life requires intention. Start small. Spend 5 minutes each morning or evening observing your breath. Let it anchor you to the present moment. As thoughts arise, notice them without judgment. Write them down if it helps. Over time, patterns will emerge, offering insights into your inner world. Ask yourself gentle questions. What brings me joy? What drains my energy? When do I feel most alive? These questions are not meant to have immediate answers but to spark a dialogue with yourself. As you deepen this dialogue, you'll find that even the smallest shifts in awareness can lead to profound changes. The journey of self-awareness is not linear. There will be days of clarity and days of confusion. But every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your true self. Remember the monk's words to the traveler. Even a small light can guide you if you're willing to follow it. Let your light, however dim it may seem, illuminate your path. As we close this reflection, I invite you to take a moment of silence. Breathe deeply. Feel the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, and the quiet presence of your mind. Know that in this moment you are enough. You are already on the path, and every breath is a step forward. The Buddha's teachings remind us that the journey inward is the most profound journey of all. In discovering ourselves, we find not only clarity but also the wisdom to navigate life's inevitable challenges. Let this year be a time of awakening, a time to light your lamp and walk boldly into the unknown, trusting that each step will reveal the way. Defining your why. Discovering purpose in the modern world. On the surface, life often feels like a series of tasks, one obligation leading to another, days blending into weeks, weeks into months. But deep within each of us, there's a quiet yearning, a question that surfaces in moments of stillness. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? It's a question that feels both daunting and liberating, for in answering it, we open ourselves to a life of meaning. Buddhism teaches us that purpose is not something we find outside of ourselves. It isn't hidden in the accolades we chase, the possessions we accumulate, or the validation we seek from others. Instead, purpose resides within, waiting patiently for us to notice it. Like the Buddhist concept of Dharma, our purpose is our unique path, an inner compass that quietly guides us toward authenticity and fulfillment. There's an old story about a sailor caught in a storm. His compass was damaged, its needle unsteady and erratic. Yet, despite its imperfection, the compass still pointed in the general direction of home. Trusting its faint guidance, the sailor navigated treacherous waters and eventually found safe harbor. In many ways, our sense of purpose is like that broken compass. It may not always be clear or precise, but if we trust it, even in its uncertainty, it will lead us to where we're meant to be. In today's fast-paced, achievement-driven world, it's easy to lose sight of our inner compass. We're pulled in countless directions, influenced by societal expectations, family pressures, and the relentless pursuit of success. But what happens when we achieve everything we thought we wanted, only to feel unfulfilled? It's in these moments that we realize purpose isn't about what we do, but why we do it. I once met a man named Ravi who exemplified this struggle. Ravi had climbed the corporate ladder with relentless determination. By all accounts, he was successful, financially secure, respected by his peers, and living a life many envied. Yet, late at night, he often felt a hollow ache in his chest. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, he sat down with a journal and asked himself a simple question. Why am I doing all this? At first, his answers were predictable. To provide for my family, to be respected, to achieve stability. But as he probed deeper, he realized these reasons weren't truly his. They were inherited from a culture that equated success with worth. As Ravi continued to reflect, he discovered a forgotten passion for teaching, a joy he had once experienced while mentoring young interns. This realization marked a turning point. He began volunteering as a mentor in his free time and eventually transitioned into a role as a teacher. Though his new path wasn't as lucrative, it filled him with a sense of purpose he had never known. Ravi's story reminds us that purpose is deeply personal. It often hides in the quiet corners of our lives, in the activities that bring us joy, the causes that ignite our passion, and the moments that make us feel most alive. To uncover it, we must be willing to look inward and ask ourselves the questions we've been avoiding. What truly matters to me? What brings me joy? What am I willing to dedicate my life to, even if no one else notices? The Buddhist teachings offer profound insights into this search for purpose. He spoke of the Four Noble Truths as a way to understand the nature of life and the roots of suffering. At the heart of these teachings is the idea that much of our discontent arises from craving success, approval, or material possessions. But when we shift our focus from external pursuits to inner alignment, we find a path that leads to peace. Consider the Eightfold Path, which serves as a practical guide for living a purposeful life. It emphasizes principles like right intention and right livelihood, encouraging us to align our actions with our values. When our daily choices reflect our deeper truths, we experience a sense of harmony that no external achievement can provide. There's a story from the Buddhist time that beautifully illustrates this principle. A young man named Siddhartha, known for his wealth and business acumen, approached the Buddha with a troubled heart. Despite his riches, Siddhartha felt restless, as though something essential was missing from his life. The Buddha asked him, "What brings you peace?" Siddhartha thought for a moment and replied, "Helping others." The Buddha smiled and said, "Then let that be your path." Inspired by this simple yet profound advice, Siddhartha dedicated his life to building shelters for the poor and supporting those in need. In serving others, he found the peace he had long sought. The law of karma also plays a crucial role in understanding purpose. Karma teaches us that our actions have consequences, not just in the external world, but in shaping our inner character. When we act with intention and integrity, we plant seeds of goodness that blossom into a fulfilling life. This principle reminds us that purpose isn't just about grand gestures. It's found in the small, everyday choices we make to live authentically and compassionately. A close friend of mine, Anna, once shared a practice that helped her connect with her purpose. Every morning, she asked herself 3 questions. What am I grateful for? Who can I serve today? How can I grow today? These questions became her compass, guiding her actions and keeping her aligned with what mattered most. Over time, she noticed that even mundane tasks took on new meaning when approached with intention. Cooking dinner for her family became an act of love, A challenging work project became an opportunity for growth. Purpose is not static. It evolves as we grow and change. What feels meaningful today may shift tomorrow, and that's okay. The key is to remain curious and open, allowing our inner compass to guide us through life's uncertainties. In moments of doubt, we can return to the question, why am I here? Not to find a definitive answer, but to reconnect with the journey. As you reflect on your own life, consider 3 experiences that brought you profound joy or fulfillment. What do they have in common? Perhaps it's the connection you felt with others, the creativity you expressed, or the sense of making a difference. These themes are clues to your why. Write them down, not as rigid goals, but as gentle reminders of what truly matters to you. In the end, defining your purpose is not about reaching a destination. It's about living each day with intention, guided by the quiet wisdom within. The Buddha once said, "Your work is to discover your work and then, with all your heart, to give yourself to it." Let these words be a beacon as you navigate the waters of your life. When you trust your inner compass, even in its imperfection, you'll find that purpose is not a distant goal but a present reality, a way of being that infuses every moment with meaning. And as you walk this path, remember that you are not alone. Each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the peace and fulfillment you seek. Detachment from external validation, finding inner freedom. Have you ever paused to wonder how much of your energy is spent seeking approval? In a world fueled by likes, comments, and applause, it's easy to fall into the trap of measuring our worth through the eyes of others. Yet, as the Buddha taught, true peace does not come from external sources. It arises from within, from the deep understanding that our value is intrinsic and unshaken by the opinions of the world. Imagine a farmer who carried 2 jars to fetch water each day. One jar was perfect, holding every drop, while the other had a crack, leaking water along the way. For years, the cracked jar felt inadequate, ashamed of its imperfection. One day, the jar finally spoke to the farmer, apologizing for its flaw. The farmer smiled gently and said, "Have you noticed the flowers that bloom along the path? It is because of your crack that they are watered every day." This story reminds us that our worth isn't defined by perfection. Like the cracked jar, we each carry unique gifts that contribute beauty to the world, often in ways we don't immediately see. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means freeing ourselves from the constant need for validation. It's about embracing our authentic selves, flaws and all, and understanding that our value lies in what we nurture, not in how we're perceived. In the Buddha's teachings, the concept of tanha, craving, is often described as the root of suffering. This craving manifests in our longing for recognition, our fear of criticism, and our need to be seen as enough in the eyes of others. Yet, the Buddha also taught that liberation is possible through the practice of letting go. When we release the grip of craving, we discover a peace that cannot be taken away. A woman named Lena once shared her journey of detachment. Lena was a talented artist, but she hesitated to share her work, fearing it wouldn't be good enough. One day, encouraged by a friend, she posted a painting online. To her surprise, it received few likes and comments. At first, she felt crushed, her worst fears seemingly confirmed. But as she sat with her disappointment, she realized something profound. The joy she felt while painting had nothing to do with the reaction it received. That joy was hers, untouched by external validation. This realization set her free. From that day forward, Lena painted not for approval, but for the pure pleasure of creation. Lena's experience mirrors a core principle of the Eightfold Path: right intention. When our actions are guided by genuine purpose rather than the desire for recognition, they become a source of fulfillment. The Buddha taught that actions rooted in integrity and authenticity lead to a life of peace, because they are not dependent on external outcomes. In our modern, digital world, the pull of validation is stronger than ever. Social media, with its curated images and endless metrics of approval, creates a constant cycle of comparison and craving. How often do we post a photo, not for the joy of sharing, but to see how many likes it will garner? How often do we measure our self-worth by these fleeting markers? Detachment invites us to step back and ask, what truly brings me joy? What am I seeking? And why? These questions, simple yet profound, can guide us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves. They remind us that our value isn't found in a number on a screen, but in the quiet, unshakable truth of who we are. The law of karma offers a powerful perspective here. Karma teaches us that our actions have consequences, not in a punitive sense, but as a natural unfolding of cause and effect. When we act out of a need for validation, we strengthen the cycle of craving. But when we act from a place of authenticity, we cultivate inner freedom. Imagine planting seeds in a garden. If you plant seeds of comparison and fear, you'll grow a garden of anxiety. But if you plant seeds of self-compassion and intention, you'll cultivate a garden of peace. There's a story of a monk who was often insulted by a villager. No matter how harsh the words, the monk remained calm. One day, the villager asked, "Why don't you get angry when I insult you?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" This wisdom illustrates the power of detachment. When we refuse to internalize the judgments of others, we protect our peace. Detachment also invites us to embrace impermanence. In the grand dance of life, everything is fleeting: praise, criticism, success, failure. The Buddha often used the metaphor of a river to describe this truth. Just as a river is never the same from one moment to the next, our experiences are in constant flux. When we cling to external validation, we're like someone trying to hold onto the water of the river. But when we let go, we flow with its current, finding freedom in the present moment. A practical way to cultivate detachment is through mindfulness. Spend 5 minutes each day observing your thoughts without judgment. Notice when you're drawn to seek approval or avoid criticism. Ask yourself, is this thought serving me, or is it keeping me bound? Over time, this practice helps you develop awareness of the patterns that drive your need for validation. Another powerful practice is gratitude. Each evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for, not achievements, but moments of connection, joy, or learning. Gratitude shifts our focus from external approval to the abundance already present in our lives. It reminds us that we are enough, just as we are. The Buddhist teachings remind us that detachment is not about isolation. It's about liberation. When we free ourselves from the need for validation, we open our hearts to genuine connection. We no longer seek relationships to fill a void, but to share the fullness of who we are. We no longer create to impress, but to express our unique gifts. As we reflect on detachment, let's return to the story of the cracked jar. Like the jar, we all carry imperfections, but it is through these imperfections that we bring beauty to the world. The flowers along the path bloomed because of the crack, not despite it. In the same way, our true value lies not in how others see us, but in the quiet, steady ways we nurture life around us. So, as you navigate the complexities of modern life, remember this: your worth is not a reflection of others' opinions. It is not measured by likes, applause, or accolades. Your worth is infinite, intrinsic, and unshakable. It is found in the authenticity of your actions, the sincerity of your heart, and the quiet joy of being yourself. Let this be your mantra: I am enough just as I am. Repeat it in moments of doubt. Carry it with you as a shield against the pull of validation. And as you walk your path, may you find the freedom that comes from letting go, the freedom to live, create, and love from a place of wholeness. In the end, detachment is not about turning away from the world, but about engaging with it in a way that honors your truth. It is about finding peace in the present moment, knowing that you are already complete. Trust this truth, and let it guide you to a life of inner freedom and quiet joy, focusing on what you can control, the art of serenity. Imagine yourself standing on the deck of a small boat, adrift in the middle of a vast ocean. The waves rise and fall unpredictably, the wind shifts directions without warning, and dark clouds occasionally gather on the horizon. You cannot tame the sea or command the storm, yet you are not powerless. You have your hands on the sails, your feet steady on the deck, and your heart guided by an inner compass. This is life. The ocean is the chaos of existence, and the mastery of the boat is the art of serenity. The Buddha's teachings remind us that suffering often arises from our attempts to control the uncontrollable. In clinging to the illusion of mastery over life circumstances, other people's actions, the outcomes of our efforts, or the inevitability of change, we create tension and frustration within ourselves. Yet, there is liberation in understanding that peace is not found in controlling the chaos but in mastering our response to it. In the ancient texts, the Buddha often used metaphors of nature to illuminate his teachings. One such story tells of a young monk troubled by constant distractions. Seeking advice, he approached his teacher, who led him to a nearby river. The teacher handed the monk a stick and asked him to create stillness in the water. The monk stirred the stick, hoping to calm the ripples, but his efforts only created more waves. Frustrated, he looked to his teacher, who said, "The water stills itself when left undisturbed. So too will your mind, if you learn to let go." This wisdom invites us to reflect on our own lives. How often do we exhaust ourselves trying to control things beyond our reach? Perhaps it's a loved one's behavior, an unpredictable outcome at work, or the fear of an uncertain future. These are the ripples we try to still with frantic energy, only to find ourselves more agitated. A friend of mine, Raj, once shared a story that beautifully illustrated this truth. Raj had spent years trying to mend a fractured relationship with his brother. He sent heartfelt messages, made repeated efforts to reconnect, and often blamed himself when his brother remained distant. One day, exhausted and defeated, he sought advice from a wise elder in his community. The elder asked Raj to list the things he could control in the situation and those he couldn't. As Raj wrote, he realized he couldn't control his brother's responses, past grievances, or the passage of time. What he could control, however, was his own capacity for forgiveness, his ability to express love without expectation, and his decision to release the guilt he carried. That moment marked a turning point. By focusing on what was within his power, Raj found peace, not in fixing the relationship, but in letting go of the need to. The practice of focusing on what we can control is deeply intertwined with the teachings of Anicca, the Buddhist principle of impermanence. Everything in life, relationships, successes, failures, even the seasons of our emotions, is in constant flux. The Buddha likened life to a river, ever-changing and impossible to hold. In resisting this flow, we suffer, but in accepting it, we find freedom. The Four Noble Truths provide a framework for understanding this. The first truth acknowledges that life contains suffering, dukkha, while the second identifies attachment and craving as its root causes. We crave stability, predictability, and control, clinging to the illusion that we can shape life entirely to our will. The third truth offers hope. Liberation from suffering is possible. The fourth, the Eightfold Path, provides the tools to navigate this liberation, including right effort, right mindfulness, and right view, all of which encourage us to focus our energy on what truly matters. One of the most practical ways to apply these teachings is by creating a control list. On one side of the page, write down the things you cannot control: other people's opinions, the weather, the past, or the inevitable twists of fate. On the other side, list what you can control: your reactions, your words, your choices, and the way you nurture your inner peace. By intentionally shifting your focus to the second column, you reclaim the energy often wasted on frustration and channel it into meaningful action. There's a story of a sailor caught in a sudden storm. The waves grew fierce, and the wind tore at the sails. Panicked, the sailor tried to calm the sea by shouting at it, but the storm raged on. Realizing the futility of his efforts, he turned his attention to the boat. He adjusted the sails, steered toward calmer waters, and kept his focus on navigating through the storm. By the time the skies cleared, he had not only survived but grown more skilled and resilient. This story reminds us that while we cannot change life storms, we can choose how we navigate them. In modern life, the storms often come in the form of challenges at work, conflicts in relationships, or the relentless pace of societal expectations. Yet, the principles of the Eightfold Path, particularly right concentration and right mindfulness, offer a way forward. They teach us to anchor our attention in the present moment, where our power lies. When we practice mindfulness, we cultivate the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, even in the face of adversity. A simple but profound practice is mindful breathing. When faced with a situation that feels overwhelming, pause and take 3 deep breaths. With each inhale, remind yourself of what you can control. With each exhale, release what you cannot. This small act centers your mind and creates space for clarity and intentionality. In the teachings of karma, we are reminded that our actions ripple outward, shaping not only our lives but the world around us. When we focus on what we can control, our kindness, our integrity, our resilience, we plant seeds of peace and positivity. These seeds grow into a life that reflects our deepest values, regardless of external circumstances. There's a monk I once met who exemplified this truth. Despite living in a monastery that faced frequent natural disasters, floods, landslides, and storms, he radiated a calm, unshakable presence. When asked how he maintained his serenity, he smiled and said, "I tend to my garden. The storms may come, but I focus on planting what will grow when the sun returns." His words are a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, we have the power to cultivate something beautiful. As you journey through life's unpredictable waters, remember that peace is not the absence of storms, but the mastery of your boat. Focus on adjusting your sails, trusting your inner compass, and responding with grace. Each storm you navigate becomes a teacher, revealing strengths you didn't know you had and guiding you closer to the shore of your true self. Let this be your guiding mantra. I cannot calm the sea, but I can adjust my sails. Carry it with you in moments of uncertainty. Whisper it to yourself when the waves rise, and trust that no matter how fierce the storm, you have the tools to navigate through it. In the end, serenity is not about controlling life but about aligning with its flow. By focusing on what you can control, you free yourself from the burden of what you cannot. And in that freedom, you discover a peace that no storm can take away. Aligning actions with values, living authentically. There comes a time in every life when we stand at a crossroads. Before us lies a choice. One path appears smooth and golden, crowded with others hurrying forward, promising rewards that society holds in high esteem: wealth, recognition, and security. The other path is quiet, overgrown, and uncertain. It lacks the glitter of the first, yet something about it feels right. In this moment of decision, a question echoes in our hearts. Am I living a life true to myself, or am I merely following the crowd? This is the story of authenticity, a journey toward aligning our actions with our deepest values. In the teachings of the Buddha, the Eightfold Path offers a map for this journey. It invites us to walk a path of integrity, guided by principles such as right intention and right action. These are not abstract ideals but practical tools for living authentically, rooted in kindness, wisdom, and a commitment to what truly matters. There is an old tale of a young man named Covey, who stood at such a crossroads. Covey had grown up in a small village, dreaming of becoming an artist. His sketches of nature were simple yet beautiful, reflecting his quiet reverence for the world around him. But as he grew older, the voices of expectation grew louder. Art is a hobby, they said. A real career is what you need. Torn between his passion and the pressures of conformity, Covey found himself at a fork in the road. One day, while wandering in the forest, he met an old hermit. Seeing the turmoil in Covey's eyes, the hermit asked, "What troubles you?" Covey poured out his heart, speaking of his dreams and the fear of disappointing others. The hermit listened patiently and then said, "There are 2 paths before you, the path of gold and the path of the heart. One is easy to follow because others have paved it for you. The other is harder, but it is yours alone. Which will you choose?" That night, Covey stayed awake, wrestling with his decision. In the quiet hours, he realized that the joy he felt while sketching was not about impressing others. It was an expression of his truest self. The next morning, he chose the quieter path, dedicating himself to his art. Though the road was challenging, each step brought him closer to a life that felt whole and meaningful. In time, his work began to resonate with others, not because it followed trends, but because it came from a place of authenticity. Covey's story mirrors a question that we all face. What does it mean to live authentically? At its heart, authenticity is the alignment of our actions with our core values. It is the courage to choose what feels true over what feels easy, even when the world around us pushes in the opposite direction. The Buddha's teachings remind us that this alignment is not just a moral choice, but a path to inner peace. When our actions reflect our values, we experience harmony between our inner and outer worlds. Conversely, when we act against our values, whether to please others, avoid conflict, or chase fleeting rewards, we create internal discord, a quiet unease that pulls us away from ourselves. In modern life, the pressures to conform can be overwhelming. Social media bombards us with curated images of success, telling us who we should be and what we should strive for. Family and societal expectations add another layer, shaping our choices in subtle and overt ways. Amidst this noise, it's easy to lose sight of our own voice. But the Buddha reminds us, better to live one day authentically than 100 years pretending to be someone you are not. To begin the journey toward authenticity, we must first identify our values. What truly matters to you? Is it kindness, creativity, honesty, growth, or connection? These values are like the roots of a tree, grounding us in a world of change. Without them, we are like leaves blown by the wind, moving in whichever direction the current takes us. A friend of mine, Maya, once shared her process for uncovering her values. After feeling burned out in a high-paying corporate job, she took a sabbatical and spent time volunteering at a local community center. There, she rediscovered her love for helping others and realized that her core values were compassion and service. When she returned to work, she chose to shift her career toward nonprofit leadership, a path less glamorous but deeply fulfilling. Maya's story illustrates how connecting with our values can transform not only our choices but our entire sense of purpose. The Eightfold Path offers practical guidance for living in alignment with our values. For example, right intention encourages us to act with kindness and integrity, while right livelihood invites us to pursue work that supports our well-being and the well-being of others. These principles remind us that authenticity is not about perfection. It's about striving to make choices that reflect who we are and who we wish to become. There's a Buddhist parable about a man who planted two seeds, one in rich, fertile soil and the other in rocky, barren ground. The first seed grew quickly but wilted under the harsh sun because its roots were shallow. The second seed grew slowly, its roots winding deep into the earth. When the storms came, it stood firm. This story teaches us that when we ground our actions in our values, we build resilience. Life's challenges may test us, but they cannot uproot us. In practice, aligning with our values often requires saying no. No to opportunities that conflict with our principles. No to relationships that drain us. No to habits that pull us away from our path. Saying no can be difficult, especially when it disappoints others or challenges norms. But every no to what doesn't align is a yes to what does. A simple but profound exercise is to write down your top 5 values and keep them visible, on your desk, your mirror, or your phone. Before making decisions, ask yourself, does this align with my values? This question acts as a compass, guiding you through life's complexities with clarity and intention. Living authentically also means embracing vulnerability. When we show up as our true selves, we risk rejection and judgment. Yet, as the Buddha taught, vulnerability is not weakness. It is the foundation of genuine connection. When we live authentically, we inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of courage and integrity. In moments of doubt, remember the story of Covey. The quieter path may be harder to see, but it is always there, waiting for you to choose it. Each step you take on this path brings you closer to a life that feels whole and true. It may not be the path others expect you to follow, but it is yours, and that is what makes it sacred. As you walk your path, let these words guide you. I choose authenticity over approval. I choose courage over comfort. I choose to live in alignment with my values. Carry this mantra with you, and let it remind you of your strength. At the end of the day, Living authentically is not about achieving a perfect life but about living a meaningful one. It is about listening to the quiet voice within and honoring it, even when the world around you is loud. Trust that this voice will guide you, just as it guided Covey, toward a life of fulfillment and peace. The journey toward authenticity is not a destination but a practice. With each choice, you plant seeds of integrity, kindness, and wisdom. And as these seeds grow, they will not only transform your life but inspire those around you to do the same. Mastering focus, a path to clarity. In the stillness of a temple nestled among the mountains, a young monk sat cross-legged before his teacher. The room was quiet save for the flickering light of a single candle. The monk had come seeking wisdom about his restless mind, which he likened to a gusting wind, scattering his thoughts in every direction. His teacher, an elderly monk with kind eyes, gestured toward the candle. "Shield the flame," he instructed. The young monk cupped his hands around it, protecting it from the invisible drafts. The teacher smiled and said, "Your mind is like this flame. Protect your focus, and it will light your way." In a world brimming with distractions, this simple yet profound metaphor holds a timeless truth. Our attention is the flame that illuminates the path of our lives. But without focus, it wavers, casting shadows of confusion and inefficiency. To master focus is to reclaim clarity, not just in our tasks, but in our sense of purpose and being. There's a paradox in modern life. We are more connected than ever, yet feel increasingly fragmented. Notifications pull us from conversations. Endless to-do lists scatter our energy. Social media entices us to multitask, leaving us drained and unfulfilled. The Buddha, though living in a time long before smartphones, understood the restless nature of the human mind. He likened it to a monkey, leaping from branch to branch, rarely at peace. With our thoughts, we make the world, he taught, underscoring the transformative power of a focused mind. I once met a woman named Alina who exemplified this struggle. Alina was a talented writer, but her creative energy felt fractured. She'd start projects only to abandon them halfway, distracted by the demands of daily life. Frustrated and doubting herself, she confided in a mentor. The mentor handed her a timer and a piece of paper. "Set this timer for 25 minutes, he said. "Write without stopping. Let nothing else matter for that time." Hesitant but desperate for change, Alina tried the exercise. To her surprise, she found that those 25 minutes, free of distractions, yielded more progress than hours of half-hearted multitasking. This simple practice became her daily ritual, and over time, she not only completed her projects but rediscovered her joy in writing. Alina's story reveals a truth echoed in Buddhist philosophy. Focus is not a talent but a skill, cultivated through practice. Mindfulness, a cornerstone of the Eightfold Path, teaches us to be fully present in each moment. When we direct our attention intentionally, we bring depth and clarity to our actions, whether mundane or extraordinary. Consider the metaphor of the candle and the wind. The candle, like your mind, has the potential to illuminate your surroundings, but it requires protection from external forces. These forces, emails, social media, the endless scroll of information, are not inherently bad, but they scatter our energy when unchecked. To shield the flame is to create boundaries for your focus, allowing it to burn steadily. In the teachings of karma, we learn that every action carries consequences. A scattered mind leads to scattered results, while focused actions create ripples of growth and fulfillment. Imagine planting seeds in a garden. If you scatter them carelessly, some may take root, but many will not. If you plant them with intention and care, however, they grow into a thriving garden. Similarly, when you bring your full attention to a task, you nourish it with the energy it needs to flourish. A friend of mine, Rajiv, shared a lesson he learned while meditating. He described how his mind would wander during his practice, darting from thought to thought. His teacher encouraged him to gently bring his focus back to his breath each time it strayed. At first, this felt tedious, but over time, Rajiv realized that the practice wasn't about achieving perfect stillness. It was about learning to return. This simple act of returning to the present moment, again and again, strengthened his ability to focus not only in meditation but in every aspect of his life. In modern life, distractions are not just external. They are internal as well. Worry, self-doubt, and fear can pull our attention away from the task at hand. The Buddha taught that these mental states are like clouds obscuring the sun. They are temporary, but they can seem all-encompassing if we don't recognize them for what they are. By cultivating mindfulness, we learn to observe these distractions without judgment, allowing them to pass without derailing our focus. Practical tools can help us anchor our attention. One such method is single tasking, as Alina discovered. Choose one task, set a timer for 25 minutes, and immerse yourself in it fully. When the timer rings, take a short break before returning for another session. This technique, often called the Pomodoro technique, trains your mind to stay engaged while giving it moments of rest. Over time, it builds mental endurance and a sense of accomplishment. Another powerful practice is intentional prioritization. At the start of each day, identify 3 tasks that align with your most important goals or values. Write them down and commit to focusing on these tasks before attending to less urgent matters. This simple habit helps you direct your energy where it matters most, reducing the overwhelm of endless to-do lists. There's a Zen story about a man who sought enlightenment. He approached a master and asked, "How can I find peace?" The master replied, "Wash your bowl." Confused, the man repeated his question, and the master again said, "Wash your bowl." The man eventually realized the master's meaning. Peace is found in doing each task with full attention, no matter how small. To master focus is not only to achieve clarity but to find joy in the act of doing. In moments of distraction, it's helpful to return to the metaphor of the candle. Ask yourself, am I shielding my flame, or am I letting the wind extinguish it? This question can serve as a gentle reminder to realign with your intentions. When you protect your focus, you protect your energy, creativity, and sense of purpose. The Buddha's teachings remind us that focus is not just about productivity. It's about presence. When we focus, we bring our full selves to the moment, whether we are working, connecting with loved ones, or simply breathing. This presence deepens our experiences and strengthens our relationships, both with others and with ourselves. As you journey toward mastering focus, remember that it is not about achieving perfection but about cultivating awareness. Each time you notice your attention wandering and bring it back, you strengthen your ability to stay present. Over time, this practice transforms not only your tasks but your entire way of being. Let these words guide you. Protect your flame. Return to the present moment. Let your focus illuminate your path. With each moment of intention, you move closer to a life of clarity, purpose, and peace. In shielding your flame, you light the way not only for yourself but for all those who walk beside you. Building emotional resilience, weathering life storms. Life often feels like a stormy sea. Waves crashing, winds howling, and currents pulling us in every direction. At times, it seems impossible to stand firm against the chaos. Yet, within this tempest lies an opportunity, a chance to cultivate emotional resilience. The Buddha's teachings remind us that while we cannot control the storms of life, we can learn to steady our hearts and minds, finding calm even in the most turbulent moments. In a quiet village at the edge of a dense forest, there stood an ancient tree. For generations, it had withstood countless storms, its branches bending under the force of the wind, its leaves torn away by heavy rains. But the tree never broke. Its strength came not from its branches but from its roots, which ran deep into the earth, anchoring it through every trial. This tree became a symbol of resilience for the villagers, a reminder that the key to enduring life's challenges is to be firmly grounded. Emotional resilience, like the strength of that tree, is not about avoiding hardship. It is about how we respond when the winds of change threaten to uproot us. Resilience allows us to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing ourselves, and to transform suffering into growth. The Buddha often spoke of suffering as an inevitable part of life, captured in the first noble truth, dukkha, the reality of dissatisfaction and pain. Yet, he also offered hope, teaching that through understanding, mindfulness, and effort, we can transcend suffering. There was a woman named Anaya, whose story beautifully illustrates this transformation. Anaya faced a year of profound loss, losing her job, her home, and a loved one within months. At first, the weight of these events crushed her spirit, leaving her adrift in a sea of despair. But one evening, as she walked through a park, she noticed a small sapling that had sprouted in the shadow of a fallen tree. It struck her as a metaphor for life's resilience, the ability to grow even in the face of destruction. Inspired, Anaya began to seek ways to rebuild her life, starting not with her circumstances but with her inner world. She turned to mindfulness, a practice rooted in the teachings of the Buddha. Each morning, she sat quietly, focusing on her breath and observing her thoughts without judgment. This simple ritual became her anchor, helping her find moments of peace amidst the turmoil. Through mindfulness, Anaya discovered that her suffering, while intense, was not permanent. Like a storm, it would pass. This realization, drawn from the Buddhist principle of anicca, impermanence, gave her the strength to endure. Impermanence is both a challenge and a gift. It reminds us that no joy lasts forever, but it also assures us that no pain is eternal. The Buddha likened life to a flowing river, constantly changing. By accepting this truth, we free ourselves from clinging to what we cannot hold and from resisting what we cannot stop. Anaya learned to embrace this flow, finding gratitude for the small blessings that remained in her life. A friend's kindness, a moment of laughter, the beauty of a sunrise. Each of these moments became a reminder that even amidst loss, life continues to offer gifts. Resilience also involves understanding the roots of our emotions. The Buddha taught that our suffering often arises not from the events themselves but from our attachment to how we think life should be. We expect stability, control, and fairness, and when these expectations are unmet, we feel betrayed. Yet, by letting go of these attachments, we create space for acceptance and growth. I once heard a story about a monk who was asked how he remained calm during a devastating flood that destroyed his monastery. He replied, "I grieved for what was lost, but I did not cling to it. The flood swept away the walls, but it could not sweep away the peace in my heart." His words capture the essence of resilience, not the absence of sorrow, but the ability to face it without being consumed by it. A practical way to cultivate this inner peace is through grounding rituals. When life feels overwhelming, simple practices can help us reconnect with the present moment and restore our sense of stability. Deep breathing is one such practice. Take a slow inhale, hold it for a moment, and then exhale fully. As you breathe, imagine your breath flowing like the roots of a tree, anchoring you to the earth. Another ritual is to take a mindful walk, paying attention to the sensations of your feet on the ground, the sounds around you, and the rhythm of your movement. These practices remind us that no matter how chaotic life becomes, we can find stillness within. The Eightfold Path offers further guidance for building resilience. Right view encourages us to see challenges as opportunities for growth, while right effort reminds us to cultivate positive thoughts and habits, even in difficult times. When we approach life with curiosity and compassion, we transform adversity into a teacher, revealing strengths we didn't know we had. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, in which broken pottery is repaired with gold, highlighting the cracks rather than hiding them. This philosophy mirrors the Buddhist view of suffering. It is not something to erase, but something to integrate, allowing it to shape us into more beautiful and compassionate beings. Anaya embraced this idea, seeing her losses not as defeats but as openings for new possibilities. She pursued a career that aligned with her values, deepened her relationships, and discovered a strength she hadn't known she possessed. The law of karma teaches us that our actions shape our experiences, both outwardly and inwardly. By choosing to respond to challenges with patience, kindness, and perseverance, we plant seeds of resilience that will bear fruit in the future. Like the roots of the ancient tree, these actions ground us, allowing us to weather life's storms with grace. As you reflect on your own life, consider the moments when you faced hardship. What helped you endure? What lessons did you learn? These questions are not just about the past, but about preparing for the future. Emotional resilience is a skill we can cultivate one choice at a time. When the winds rise, we can choose to bend rather than break, to adapt rather than resist. In the end, resilience is not about avoiding pain but about finding meaning within it. It is the ability to stand tall, like the ancient tree, rooted in the knowledge that storms are temporary and that within us lies the strength to endure. As the Buddha taught, no matter how hard the past, you can always begin again. Let this truth guide you, reminding you that every challenge is an invitation to grow. When the storms of life come, remember the tree and its deep roots. Remember Anaya and her journey toward acceptance. And remember that within you, too, is the capacity to weather life's challenges with courage and wisdom. Take a deep breath, steady your heart, and trust that you are stronger than you know. Let your resilience become a beacon, lighting the way not only for yourself but for those around you. Cultivating a growth mindset, thriving in challenges. Life often feels like an endless series of challenges, each one testing our patience, resilience, and resolve. Yet, within every setback lies an invitation to learn, to grow, and to become more than we were before. The Buddha's teachings remind us that adversity is not a punishment but a natural part of existence. Just as the lotus rises from muddy waters to bloom with unparalleled beauty, so too can we thrive amidst life's difficulties when we cultivate a growth mindset. There was once an artist named Lila who dreamed of having her paintings displayed in a prestigious gallery. Her work was bold and full of emotion, reflecting her unique perspective on the world. But when she submitted her first collection, the gallery rejected it, saying it lacked refinement. Undeterred, Lila worked tirelessly to improve her technique, incorporating feedback while staying true to her vision. Again, she submitted her work, and again she faced rejection. This cycle repeated itself over several years. Each rejection stung, but each one also taught her something new about her craft, about perseverance, and about herself. Finally, after countless hours of practice and reflection, Lila completed a piece that she felt truly represented her growth. When she submitted it, not only was it accepted, but it became the centerpiece of the gallery's most successful exhibition that year. Lila's masterpiece wasn't just a reflection of her artistic talent. It was a testament to her unwavering belief in the power of growth. Lila's journey embodies the essence of a growth mindset, the belief that our abilities and potential are not fixed, but can be developed through effort, learning, and resilience. This mindset is deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy, which teaches that life is a continuous process of becoming. The Buddha himself spent years seeking enlightenment, facing doubts, distractions, and failures along the way. His eventual awakening wasn't the result of innate wisdom but of his commitment to growth. In modern life, it's easy to view challenges as barriers. When things don't go as planned, we often label ourselves as not good enough or unlucky. But the teachings of karma remind us that every action we take, every effort we make, sets in motion a ripple of consequences. When we approach challenges with curiosity and determination, we plant seeds of growth that will one day bear fruit. A close friend of mine, Arun, shared how adopting a growth mindset transformed his approach to failure. Arun worked in a competitive industry where success often felt like a race. After being passed over for a promotion he had worked tirelessly for, he initially felt defeated. But instead of dwelling on the disappointment, Arun decided to treat the setback as a learning opportunity. He sought feedback from his colleagues, identified areas for improvement, and began developing new skills. Over time, not only did he secure a promotion, but he also became a mentor to others, sharing the lessons he had learned. Arun's experience illustrates how setbacks, when viewed through the lens of growth, can become stepping stones to success. The Buddha often spoke of impermanence or anicca as a fundamental truth of existence. Just as the seasons change and rivers flow, so too do our circumstances. A challenge that feels insurmountable today may lead to new opportunities tomorrow. By embracing impermanence, we free ourselves from the fear of failure and open ourselves to the possibility of transformation. The Four Noble Truths also offer valuable insights into cultivating a growth mindset. The first truth acknowledges the reality of suffering, while the second identifies its cause, attachment and craving. When we cling to the idea that success must come easily or that failure defines us, we create unnecessary suffering. But the third truth offers hope. Liberation from suffering is possible. The fourth, the Eightfold Path, provides practical steps for achieving this liberation, including right effort and right view. These principles encourage us to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than as obstacles to our happiness. One way to nurture a growth mindset is by keeping a growth journal. Each evening, take a few moments to reflect on the day's challenges. Ask yourself, what did I learn? How did this experience help me grow? Write down even the smallest victories, such as overcoming a moment of self-doubt or trying something new. Over time, this practice helps shift your focus from outcomes to progress, reminding you that growth is a journey, not a destination. There's a Zen saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8. This simple phrase captures the resilience required to cultivate a growth mindset. Each time we fall, we have a choice, to stay down or to rise again, stronger and wiser. In the face of adversity, ask yourself, what is this moment teaching me? How can I use this experience to become more compassionate, skilled, or resilient? A powerful story from Buddhist tradition tells of a young monk tasked with carrying water from a river to the monastery every day. His pot had a small crack, causing it to leak along the way. At first, the monk was frustrated, feeling that his efforts were wasted. But over time, he noticed that the path where the water leaked had become lush with flowers, while the rest of the trail remained barren. This realization transformed his perspective. What he once saw as a flaw became a source of beauty and growth. Similarly, our challenges and imperfections often lead to unexpected blessings. The law of karma teaches that every effort we make, even those that seem futile, contributes to the greater tapestry of our lives. When we embrace this truth, we begin to see setbacks not as failures but as integral parts of our journey. In moments of doubt, it can be helpful to remember the story of the lotus. This exquisite flower begins its life in the murky depths of a pond, surrounded by mud and darkness. Yet, it rises through the water, reaching for the light, until it blooms in radiant beauty. The lotus doesn't resist its environment. It uses it as the foundation for its growth. This is the essence of a growth mindset, the ability to thrive not in spite of challenges but because of them. As you navigate your own journey, consider the ways in which you can cultivate a growth mindset. Start by reframing your relationship with failure. Instead of seeing it as a dead end, view it as a teacher, guiding you toward greater understanding. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and remind yourself that growth is not about perfection but about persistence. Let the story of Lila inspire you to keep refining your craft, whatever it may be. Let Arun's resilience remind you that setbacks are not the end but the beginning of something new. And let the lotus teach you that even in the murkiest waters, you have the power to rise and bloom. As the Buddha taught, with our thoughts we make the world. By cultivating a growth mindset, we transform challenges into opportunities, setbacks into stepping stones, and adversity into a path of discovery. Embrace this mindset, and you will find that the journey itself becomes a masterpiece, a testament to your strength, resilience, and boundless potential. Letting go, the art of emotional liberation. In a quiet village, nestled between rolling hills, there lived a man who was known for his remarkable strength. One day, as he walked through the woods, he came across a thick rope burning at both ends. Without a second thought, he grabbed it, believing he could save it. But as the flames crept closer to his hands, he realized the pain was unbearable. Yet, he hesitated to release it, clinging tighter in his fear of losing what he had grasped. It was only when he finally let go that the searing pain stopped, and he felt the freedom of release. This simple story holds a profound lesson. Letting go is not about losing, but about liberating ourselves from what no longer serves us. The Buddhist teachings remind us that clinging, whether to people, possessions, or expectations, is one of the root causes of suffering. Yet, in the act of releasing, we create space for healing, growth, and peace. Life often asks us to let go, sometimes gently, other times with a sudden force that feels like a storm. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the fading of a dream, these moments can leave us feeling adrift. But within each loss lies an opportunity to connect with the deeper truths of impermanence and freedom. The Buddha taught that everything in life is transient. Our joys, our sorrows, and even our identities. To resist this truth is to invite suffering. To embrace it is to find liberation. There's a story from the Buddha's life that speaks to this. One day, a woman named Kisa Gautami came to him, her heart shattered by the loss of her only child. Carrying the lifeless body, she begged the Buddha to bring her son back to life. He listened with compassion and said, "Bring me a mustard seed from a household that has not known death, and I will heal your pain." Filled with hope, Kisa went from house to house, but in every home, she found stories of loss and grief. Slowly, she realized that suffering was a shared human experience, and in this understanding, she found the strength to let go of her son's body and begin the journey of healing. Kisa's story teaches us that letting go is not an act of forgetting or denying pain. It is an act of accepting life as it is. This acceptance is not passive resignation but a courageous embrace of reality. In letting go, we honor what was while making room for what could be. The Four Noble Truths provide a framework for understanding this process. The first truth acknowledges the existence of suffering, while the second identifies its cause, attachment and craving. When we cling to things, be it relationships, material possessions, or even ideas of who we should be, we tether ourselves to the flames of dissatisfaction. The third truth offers hope. By letting go of these attachments, we can find peace. The fourth truth, the Eightfold Path, guides us toward this liberation through practices like mindfulness and compassion. In my own life, I've seen the power of letting go through a dear friend, Emma. Emma had spent years in a career that no longer fulfilled her, driven by the fear of disappointing her family. The weight of this unspoken expectation drained her, leaving her anxious and disconnected. One day, after a particularly stressful meeting, she sat down and wrote a letter, not to anyone else but to herself. In it, she acknowledged her fears, her hopes, and her longing for change. Then, she made the decision to leave her job and pursue a path that aligned with her values. It wasn't easy. She faced moments of doubt and uncertainty, but as she let go of the expectations that bound her, she discovered a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. Emma's story illustrates that letting go is not a single act but a practice. It requires self-awareness, courage, and a willingness to step into the unknown. The Buddha described this process as crossing a river. At first, we cling to the raft that carries us, but to reach the other shore, we must eventually leave it behind. What once served us may no longer be what we need. The law of karma reminds us that our actions, thoughts, and intentions shape our experiences. When we hold on to resentment, fear, or regret, we reinforce patterns of suffering. But when we choose to release these burdens, we create space for new possibilities. Letting go is not about erasing the past. It is about transforming it into a foundation for growth. A practical way to begin this practice is to choose one thing, physical or emotional, to release each month. It could be a piece of clothing that no longer fits, a habit that no longer serves you, or a grudge that weighs on your heart. Reflect on what this act of letting go brings into your life. Does it create space for creativity, connection, or joy? Does it lighten the load you carry? Mindfulness is another powerful tool for letting go. When difficult emotions arise, instead of resisting them, sit with them. Observe them with curiosity and compassion, as if you were watching clouds pass across the sky. Notice how they change and fade, reminding you of the impermanent nature of all things. This practice helps you build a sense of detachment, not indifference, but the ability to hold things lightly. There's a Zen story about a professor who visited a monk, seeking wisdom. The monk poured tea into the professor's cup until it overflowed. When the professor protested, the monk said, "You are like this cup. You are so full of your own opinions and attachments that nothing more can fit. To gain wisdom, you must first empty your cup." Letting go is like emptying the cup, creating space for new understanding and experiences. In moments of loss or change, it's natural to feel resistance. But the teachings of the Buddha remind us that this resistance is often the source of our pain. By accepting what is, we open ourselves to the flow of life, trusting that each ending carries within it the seed of a new beginning. The lotus, a symbol of purity and enlightenment, grows in muddy waters. Its beauty is not in spite of the mud but because of it. Letting go allows us to rise, like the lotus, from the depths of our challenges. As you navigate your own journey, remember the story of the burning rope. What are you holding onto that no longer serves you? What would it feel like to release it? These questions are not meant to rush you but to gently guide you toward liberation. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to your strength and trust in the unfolding of life. When you choose to release what weighs you down, you reclaim your energy and your freedom. You make room for joy, growth, and the unexpected gifts of the present moment. As the Buddha said, you can only lose what you cling to. Let these words remind you that in letting go, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Imagine the burdens you carry as leaves floating on a stream. Watch as they drift away, carried by the current, until the water is clear and still. In that stillness, feel the lightness of being. This is the gift of letting go, a life unburdened, a heart open to all that is yet to come, a year of transformation. As we reach the end of this exploration, take a moment to sit quietly and reflect. What have you learned? What resonated with you the most? Maybe it was the idea of letting go of external validation, or perhaps the practice of aligning your actions with your values. The beauty of this journey is that it's deeply personal. There's no right or wrong way to grow, only your way. But here's what I hope you take away. The power to focus on yourself isn't selfish. It's transformative. When you nurture your own growth, you not only change your life but also inspire those around you. Parting story, the ripple effect. There's a story of a small village nestled near a quiet lake. Every evening, an elderly man would sit by the water's edge and skip stones across its surface. When asked why he did this, he replied, "Each stone creates ripples, and those ripples touch every part of the lake. That's how change works. Start small and watch it spread." In 2025, let your focus be the stone. Each mindful decision you make, each moment of reflection, creates ripples of peace and purpose. Not just in your life, but in the lives of those you love. Your next step. So, what's your first step? Will you start a mindfulness practice, redefine your goals, or simply take a deep breath and pause? Whatever it is, remember, you are not alone on this journey. Every small step counts, and together, we can create a life of clarity and fulfillment. If this message resonated with you, let us know in the comments below. What's one change you're inspired to make in 2025? Share your thoughts because your story might be the ripple that inspires someone else. And if you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Lotus Light Teachings, and share it with someone who might benefit from these insights. Together, we can build a community rooted in peace, purpose, and transformation. Here's to a year of profound growth and discovery. Remember, you have the strength to bloom no matter the circumstances. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, may you walk in peace and light.